Hey, what's up, guys? Beeler here again, and today I wanted to do the routine series again, except I'm going to do a couple tickers. The last two videos I just did Beyond, and then I just did Square, so I'm going to try and do at least like 2 or 3 in this video. I saw a couple requests in the Premium Access channel, so I'm going to go ahead and start from the weekly with max available time, just starting out as big as I can. I just want to catch all the levels I can. This is the routine series, and in the routine series we go from the biggest time frames down to the smallest, and we decide really good alert levels based off of reasoning and just pure technical analysis of price action. So I'm just going to go through, just going through how I would, approach this chart. And I really like this series because I like the concept behind it. It teaches you how to actually go and get a better grip on the stock instead of just, randomly setting some levels. You're at least, you have some historical levels. And if you guys want to keep these levels on your charts, you can either save your chart or you can, when you do the price level tool, create lines that are there, and then color them differently. Do a color coding thing if you really want to. So I saw BA was one of the requests, and I really like BA for day trading. So I'm gonna go ahead and go over that for this as well. I might as well do Facebook, and let me go see the other request. With Facebook, Microsoft, AMD, CAT, BAC, AMD. So I might as well do Facebook and AMD next, maybe even a fourth. But I'm gonna try and definitely do at least 2 in this video. So let's just see how it goes. So instantly I see that there's a nice little channel here from about 2013 to 2016. There's a nice little just chill out range. There wasn't really big pops, big drops. It was all kind of in between the same range here. So I'm not even going to mark that, but I just wanted to note that. But we can go ahead and mark it if we really want to. Just see where it lines up on the right. Yeah, we got all that inside there. And that's 1, 2, 3, almost, yeah, that's pretty much 3 entire years, a little over 3 entire years of price action sitting between a range of about $50. For BA, that's not really a lot. BA is known for being able to take big aggressive moves up and down, especially now. But lately, it's kind of been doing the same thing as over here, except at a more aggressive attitude. It's still just sitting in between this range here. As it's doing its like second triangle. On the weekly, it looks a little uglier, but you move down to the daily, you'll see here in a minute, and you'll see. And just instantly, I want to start marking emerging candles and resistance points that I see on this left here to mark over here, because I'm using price history. When I first learned how to start charting, the stockbroker always taught me chart from day one. Know the reason for this and that. You don't want to just be like, oh, this moved up because a plane started flying. Like, no, they're doing something different, or the market has shifted in their favor in a certain aspect. Figure that aspect out. And the second thing he always taught me was price history. Like, if there's a line over here, almost 110% is going to line up at least at another point in time down the road. And you can look down the yearly chart and you can see that. Or the weekly chart, my bad. You can look through here and you can see price points that were reused. You see, if I mark this resistance here, that sure looked, doom and gloom there, but ended up getting used as a support right here. So on the weekly with all my time frames, if I just extend this to the left, and this is why price history is so important. Look where it hits. It's a resistance. So now you have a resistance turn support on this level right here. That means super bullish. So that's a really cool aspect you can go look at, because we're so used to always talking about this on the 5-minute, the 10-minute, the 30-minute, the hourly. Look at the weekly with max time. Like, this is as big as I can go with this, with time. So that's a really cool aspect. And look at where it caught support now. It did a higher low right around this level. That's a pretty big jump right there. That's pretty big technical analysis right there, because that level is not just a normal level now. It's not just where price stopped. It's where it has historically been a very crucial line. That level wasn't just crucial because of this year. That line was already crucial. Now it's just being utilized yet again. So that's a really cool thing to look at when you're doing technical analysis. So let's go through. Let's just mark some other resistances we see. Sorry. So let's mark the bottom of this emerging candle, just because I like how big that candle is. Let's go ahead and mark the top, because that's a nice little range right there, which actually ends up being a resistance right here from this gap. So we can actually go ahead and mark this gap, which if you were to go ahead and mark any levels that were next to a gap, they will most likely line up. Look at that. You have a bunch of accumulation right there. This is like cycle 1 accumulation and jump. This is like the sit-in-between phase, and then you got distribution at a very fast rate. Now, that's all because of catalytic event, but that's still kind of cool to look at. Just because bigger price action is kind of cool to look at. And I think that's all I want to mark for this weekly chart. You know, I see this right here as well. It's very minimal, very small, but I have a resistance right here, kind of looped, it broke, had a wick kind of scream that it's going to fly up, then it kind of caught support and pushed up with good price action. So it's another minimal line that I see here. Let's just zoom in right here, make sure I'm not missing anything. You can go ahead and mark this right here and this right here because it's a gap range that is near where the price is right now. So you know that there's a gap right there on a big time frame. It's a big drop right there. It's a good stop right there. So that's probably where price will end up catching support and remaining as support before pushing higher, unless some very, very bad news comes out, which that could happen any day at this point. You know, it is election year. So let's go to the daily. So now that we have all those lines marked, let's see the daily and see how all they did. So if you look at all the lines we marked, they actually ended up using being utilized as good ranges here, not just during the fall of COVID, but as the slow recovery during after. And as you can see here, just off of using the weekly and the daily, we have not touched anything from smaller time frames yet. Just from seeing that, you can tell that we have a great breakout range below 150 and above 169.60s. So we're going to be looking for the 182s after we break this 169 this week. If it is not broken this week, we'll most likely just continuate between this large range here. It's about a $19 range, so that's a pretty good range right there. A break below 150, again, I don't know how far I can stress this, but I just don't think it's going to be pretty if it is to fall under that line. But again, this is what this is all about, going through your time frames and really catching levels for a reason. Not all these lines are 100% accurate. I'm kind of just jumping through it, but I want to give you all a good idea of how you can utilize this. So let me just remove this and the reason I marked this, by the way, it wasn't to just like show like, yo, we broke trend. What I like to do when I do this is I like to mark what did the lows do, what did the highs do. You know, if I have a higher low right here, see I have a low right here, that's the lowest low. What is this considered then? It's a little bullish because it's a higher low. It's not indicating downward, like further push down. It's indicating that it wants to try and push higher. Next thing that happens, gap up. And that's right off of a pure trend line and the fact that it's a higher low. You have 1, 2, 3 days, then a gap up. So that's really nice. And then as well as when you're at your highs, you know, here's a low high. You know, this is where we pushed up and that's where we hit resistance. You know, now we're trying to go back up. Where did we stop? We're about right here now. So you have a higher high. So here's your lower high, here's your higher high. That's just a good thing to just note. You know, even if you don't end up going, all right, I'm playing calls or puts off that, it is still good to note what the chart is doing, because now you've indicated this looks a little more bullish than it does bearish off of this strong trend line, which has now been broken and being used as resistance. So now we're going to be re-watching what it's going to do. So you have your low here. This is low after trend break, high after trend break. So now we're going to see what this next move does. If it moves down here and it ends up catching before this right here, then it's the same thing as this. Same thing. It's the same exact thing. If it ends up dropping and stays a little higher than that low, then it is now a higher low. Push up, most likely, off of pure probability and percentage, it's going to make a higher high. So that's what we're going to be playing off of that. That's just pure price action. That's just going through the chart. I hope the way I explained that was kind of helpful, because that was really, I don't know if I've explained higher lows and lower, you know, all that stuff as in depth as that. I'll mainly just call it out. I won't actually 100% explain why or what, but that's kind of what I'm going after on that video, or on, not on this video, on Boeing. So that's the kind of range I'm looking for. This is the kind of price action I'm looking forward to seeing. As it goes for day trading, though, BA has been very fun. If you guys are not trading BA on like a weekly basis, it's okay, but just realize that this stock does move a lot. I'm able to actually go to the 30-minute and draw pretty good levels and then end up playing these big breakouts. So even if you don't play it, it's still good to go market. But here, let's just jump down to the 5-minute real quick. Let's remove this. 5-day. There's really good ranges on this too. Like whenever the pre-market happens, it's really good to not just mark the high, you know, but the low, and then you get a pretty good move on that. You know, if it moves up for the day and accumulates, like you have higher volume and the stock's positive for the day, then you can almost bet you're going to have a more greenish open. Next day, greenish open, drops, catches support on a known level. Didn't just drop and catch somewhere random. It's on a level we just marked. What was that? Yesterday's low? That was yesterday's high. Yesterday's pre-market high. Or that yesterday's pre-market high. Moves up for the day. So let's mark this one. Pre-market high, pre-market low. Looks like it accumulated. I'm sure there was higher volume as well as higher in an uptrend. And now we didn't break out at all. So now you know that this range right here is very crucial because we didn't cross this and we didn't cross back below this. So now you know those two levels are very crucial for BA. So if you have a very tight pre-market the next day, like let's just say this is pre-market right here, and it's very tight, you see that it's that tight, you now know this is your break level. Those are your break levels. It's break above, break below. This is your target. That's where that's most likely going to head. If it stops anywhere in between, you need to note that. But just note that, and as well as go to the end of the day and watch the stock and go see how much volume was used out of its average daily volume. Then you know you have a good move, enough room to move higher or lower, because now you know you're in an even tighter range, not just from a fundamental standpoint, but from a technical analysis standpoint. You're getting it from all around, so it's good to mark that. Now let's go do, what was the other ones I was saying? Facebook and AMD. I hope that part of the video really helped anyone. That was kind of fun going through BA like that. And some of these videos are fun, and they should be fun to you guys as well. Am I allowed to delete this? Yes, I can. Let's add max available. Yep. So just off the rip, I instantly want to mark this trend line because it is being utilized. One, you have this push up here, high, COVID, or not COVID, sorry. Drop, catch, push, COVID, catch. This was COVID. Sorry. That's COVID. And this was 2017 to 18. And then this was way back when. Alright, so let's clear those two. And I don't have earnings on the bottom right now. I could be saying some of this is earnings when I'm going through them, but I took off corporate actions just because the weekly chart gets really flooded with all these icons at the bottom, so I just took that off. So just going off Facebook, I'm pretty sure this stock's going to run up no matter who wins the election, so really be keeping an eye on like stocks like Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, really strong tech stocks because they can ever last through pretty much anything almost honestly at this point, besides their own government. So be looking out for this to continue pushing higher. If you think a big drop is coming, it probably is because it looks like a good little head and shoulders almost is trying to form on the weekly. But I'm just super bullish on stocks like Facebook because of what they've been through and how high they've pushed through what they've been through. It's crazy the hardships some of these companies go through and still last amazingly too. Some of them end up breaking records like Tesla. You know, during the pandemic, Tesla broke a record of car sales or car deliveries or something like that, like by a fat margin, not just by a little, by a fat margin in China where the COVID started from. So that just shows you know how diverse these companies can get whenever things really start to try and hurt their money. So let's go ahead and mark this resistance here. I like to see that because that's a very strong drop right there. We have a pickup, nice cup and handle almost forms. Pickup, COVID drop on our trend line from the weekly when we just marked it. And look where this resistance ends up being. So not only was it the resistance between the years, it was the pretty much the high of right here. So this looked pretty bullish when this happened right here. When that hit like that was looking pretty bullish. And yes, the COVID came, but you know that's a pretty far test right there. I would never have told you it was going to test that trend line before COVID, of course. So that had a big drop there, catch support. So this is looking bullish off of our higher high, higher low experience because you have an uptrend. You know, this is higher than this. These are higher. And this is higher than this. So you have two counts of a bullish, formation. If one of these were to be divergent, like this was here and this was here, then you have a squeeze. You know, it's always something. They never just lead into nothing. It's never just like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Like these highs and lows always end up into making something. So it's always good to go mark that. Please do that a little more, and I think you'll also have a little more fun with it while you're charting. So if we pick up on that. Let's zoom in right here, since we're already kind of done with that information. That's where it caught support after the COVID. This was what I should call the 80% entry and the 40% entry. Nice big move there. So let's go ahead and mark this right here, just before we move down to the daily time frame. I want to mark top of emerging candles. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're trying to get a recovery right now. So let's go ahead and mark that as well because that's a resistance that ended up being used as a support, not just for the run up, but as well as when it started dropping again. And that's a nice little flag right there. Emerging candle, continuation, emerging candle. That's a perfect bull flag right there. Pattern recognition. It ties back into that note that I put into Key's chat the other day. All right, so just off the rip, I instantly want to start marking a trend line off of where we caught off of that big trend line from the weekly chart, and I just want to track it and see what happened. So we got 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, 4 touch, 5 touch, gap up, move up, all-time high, 6 touch, fail, and it's kind of doing what that other chart did on Boeing. It's under its major trend line, on the bullish trend line, I should say. This isn't a primary trend line either. This is technically still our primary. God, I can't talk. Still our primary trend line. Say that 3 times fast. And then technically this is our secondary trend line because it's moving up inside of our major, range. So right here, and doing the same thing as Boeing, just like I said, it's kind of doing that 80%, rejection on it, but it's still on a very crucial support. So we're gonna play this range right here between 268 and then this major level, 247. So now we have it caught inside this range. Now we can already zoom in on just this information. So let's jump down to the 4 hour. I said this level to this level. All right, and we can delete this. See, and hold up. You wouldn't have been able to tell that was a bull flag by looking at just the 4 hour. That's why looking at bigger time frames is very helpful, because you saw me mark this on the weekly, and it was the cleanest bull flag ever. So that's why it's good to go mark that stuff. Pattern recognition. So we have it between this range. What's inside this range? Let's go ahead and mark this emerging candle. It's pretty much where it looked like it was holding as resistance in between this range and where it decided to catch support and push up from for the all-time high. Dropping where it caught this on this emerging candle. That's where it caught support and gapped down before it started looking more bearish again as it headed back into this bottom side of this range. Catches there, pushes back up, rejects the same range, and now we're still there. And look where our emerging candle level is. Look how crucial it was. Not only was it here and use this support to push up, but you got your test, gap down. We're trying to fight it right now. And what are we doing right now? We're going to see if this is going to be the next higher high or not. If this is going to break here, then we'll have it now, not from here, but from here. This will be a higher high if it was to break here and push towards not just 268 but above 268. So we're going to be seeing on Facebook this week if it's going to struggle or not. It's also not being able to run ads as well from a fundamental analysis standpoint as elections get closer to ending. So their revenue is not going to be as high as it has been these last couple months, and that's just because of that ad revenue that they're getting from the election stuff. So that's one thing to note as well. But there's also a lot of great things going on for Facebook. I mean, there's still Facebook. They still have millions and millions and millions of users everywhere. So they're a global dominant tech company. So that's a really big thing to know. So let's move down to the 30. So here on the 30-minute, Facebook's one of those ones that will run before everything else or drop before everything else. It's just a very aggressive tech stock. And now it's not doing that 100% of the time, but I'm seeing that a lot, especially lately. It seems like it's running before every other tech. It's been running before Apple even, which Apple used to be the one that everyone really kept an eye on the most just because it weighs so much, which it's still good to keep an eye on. It's still a very heavy stock on the not just the NASDAQ, but SPY as well. But just instantly I see this resistance here that's also used as a gap up and support as well before a higher push up. And then we kind of have a big, really ugly head and shoulders going on. It's not really a head and shoulders, but you have a lot of little ridges going on here on top of this level. So now we know that there's another very crucial level inside of our bigger range. So now 256 is probably your next and most important level, as well as this one right here that we already have marked. That's a very crucial level, even as we zoom in right here. Resistance, push up, gap up. I didn't want to hold this level at all. So if we can get a support catch of 263, it looks like 268 is our big move up. So looks like this is what we're going to be playing. And again, just off of looking into this week, it already looks like just right here, there's already another common resistance being made. So it looks like above 265, you'll definitely get that push to 268. Below 263, it looks like you're going to be heading back towards that 256. There is another couple levels here that have been touched a lot, like this 261, this 259. So there's a couple levels in between on not just the bottom side, but the top side as well. So that's another thing we'll be looking at on Facebook. I think I'm going to end this here, and I'll just do another routine video. for, I guess I can upload it tomorrow or whatever. But this is for Boeing and Facebook. And if this video helped you guys, please, you don't have to leave your like or comment. That all these videos are unlisted. Just for you guys. If this video helped you guys though, please tag me in chat. Please comment anything you can. But yeah, I hope this helped.